welcome to another episode of Omnisci Approved, where we talk about the entire thing that the wargaming community and the internet has been to varying degrees of metaphorical or literal on fire for the past few weeks, and that is 9th edition.
Yes.
We have the core rules for 9th edition. There were leaks. May or may not have actually been GW leaking it themselves due to the timing, because shortly after that they then released the actual open play core rules.
Actually.
Oh.
A little bit of information circling around. This is all hearsay, but apparently there was an individual who was involved in the playtesting process who had the actual rulebook, who leaked it. He has since been cut off from Games Workshop as far as any promotional material, and they basically just put it out and sped everyone's schedule forward as far as giving out information because of it. It was an actual leak. There have been other times where it feels more convenient. This one was an actual leak. We have evidence. So, as much as it's fun to have conspiracy theories, this doesn't check out.
Great for us to go ahead and have the open play rules ahead of time. Hopefully that guy's not in any legal trouble for it, but that said, his fault if he is.
Yeah,
moving on. So, in this episode, we are going to... Thanks for that bit of information, by the way.
You're welcome.
In this episode, we are going to talk just our general feelings on 9th edition. We're not going to go too deep into the nitty-gritty, but we're going to touch on a few things that we feel are worth noting. If you don't feel like sitting down and reading the whole rulebook, this will be enough to kind of get you a taste of what the changes are, but we are by no means covering everything in detail.
And keep in mind, this is just based off of the core rules that were released. We were not one of the special few who have gotten the rulebook ahead of time. That is, we're not there. But we have been ingesting as much information as we can from every source we can. Something that's interesting about us, we are a part of a competitive team, so we're constantly bouncing information off of each other, so we have a unique perspective and kind of collating information.
And the competitive teams will, if a leak gets out, most of the competitive teams will say, hey guys, this is an unverified source, but thought you should have a heads up, and hand that information around just so we can be as well informed as possible. And that's not trying to get a competitive advantage from knowing the rules. That's, we don't want to buy or build something if we think a rules change might be pushing us in a different direction, because the team we're in, like most competitive teams, we don't take unpainted models to a major tournament. So
and if you try to, we shame you. Not really, but...
No, actually we do in a friendly manner. But we want to make sure that we have a good representation of the hobby.
Yeah.
Which is something that we'll talk about a little bit afterward, how to be an ambassador to the hobby.
Yes, very good.
But stay tuned to the end for that. In the meantime, 9th edition. So to start with, this is going to be so silly of a thing to say, but the thing that I am happiest about in 9th edition is in the very front of the book, they take the time to very clearly define a lot of things that were kind of defined in line in previous books or not well defined at all. So something like what is actually meant by the word unit versus model, what engagement range is. That means within melee, that means melee range of an enemy model. More on that later.
Which has changed. So
which has slightly changed, but this. They define vertical distance, for example, to be holding an objective is now within 3 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically. Vertical distances have not been mentioned, I don't think, ever.
Yeah, I think...
For those kind of things?
One of the interesting things about it, and this is... I actually blame the United States for the rules having to be written this way. There's a difference in how different countries kind of culturally interpret things. If you look back at past editions of Warhammer 40k, the rulebook, and for Age of Sigmar as well, the rulebooks have been written with the British or European way of understanding rules, where it's the rules say I can do a thing, therefore I can do a thing. The American way of rules, and you'll notice a lot of games that generate out of North America will be very wordy and be very, almost like a legal text.
Magic the Gathering, 300-page rulebook.
Yes, because as a culture, we look at it as, okay, the rules don't say I can't do this, therefore I can. Which I don't think either one is better or worse, but I do know that the American players and American teams are usually the ones that break things. We're usually the ones who find the things that aren't fun to play with.
And this is not just gaming in like tabletop games. You see this in video games. You see this in U.S. sports. This is why. Well, look, I remember some points looking at the rules for rugby versus the rules for football. The rule book is a fraction of the size because rugby is inherently a European sport. Football is an American version. Same idea. So, that said, having things like this clearly defined, there's a bunch of stuff at the start, and then throughout, they will have sidebars that will very clearly define things. There's a huge boon, stuff that they would have had to have FAQ'd later on,
and it's
now called out to begin with.
It's really wordy. You're going to look at it, especially compared to 8th edition, you're going to look at things, and it's going to look like so much more text to say the same things, because at the end of the day, the majority of the rules are the same.
Yes.
The majority of the rules are the same, but they've taken the rules that we've been playing with for 8th edition, or if you've not played 8th edition, they took the core of what 8th edition was, and they basically defined things that were FAQ'd, that had to be changed multiple times, things we never got answers to. They've basically gone in and said, okay, this is how it works, this is what it's going to be going forward, play these accordingly.
And with that, if you are a Beer and Pretzels Warhammer player and do not care about the exact nuance of a word because you're always playing with your friends and whatever will do whatever fits narratively, we'll do whatever feels like, we'll roll a die and move on, then you can ignore a lot of those big blocks because at the end of every single one of those, well, not every, but most of those, there is a little summary block that has bullet point highlights of each section.
It's very helpful.
It's incredibly helpful.
So,
This may be the best organized rulebook GW has given us yet.
I still miss universal keywords. I'm saying it.
We need a tiny amount of them back. Anyway, I agree.
Anyway,
so
some of the core changes going from 8th edition 40k are going into 9th edition. And we are going to be, just to make it clear, we're going to be making this video from the standpoint of someone who is at least casually familiar with 8th edition.
Correct.
Just because we're comparing and contrasting. It makes life a lot easier. One of the biggest changes is they have changed the turn structure slightly. You now have, at the beginning of the game, instead of going into your movement phase, so on and so forth, you have the command phase. The command phase is where you're going to use certain stratagems, and you will also, if you're Battleforged, you're able to generate a command point at the beginning of the command phase. It's really good. It feels like they really looked at what they created with the command point system in 8th edition and tried to just squeeze it and actually make it something that works for every army, because there were some armies that you may as well not even have command points.
You have a handful of rerolls. You don't even look at the stratagems. You just save those precious few you get for those rerolls. That is coupled with something not in this book. It'll be in the full rule book. When you make a battle-forged army, the command points you get is based off of game size, not off of how you build your army. So that will put armies on an even level as far as command points, plus generating one a turn means you'll have a predictable amount of resources, and you won't have to do things like the Rusty 17, the Loyal 32, I'm taking this group of models just to give me the extra 5 command points. The only other thing worth mentioning there is that having a dedicated start of turn, here's where we do like rules maintenance type stuff. Start of turn effects must be initiated here. Things that last until next turn end here will clear a lot of things. Those of you that have played Magic, having the untap and upkeep steps at the start of turn where you do all that like clean up and pre-turn stuff makes things so much cleaner.
It keeps it from being ambiguous.
Having that phase now means you have a designated time to do all that maintenance stuff. It will be a huge boon in the long run to the game.
And even though it is an extra phase to the game, I don't think it's going to affect the speed of the game at all, because this is stuff you were doing anyway.
It just now has a defined phase where you do it here, so to remove the ambiguity. Movement phase, pretty much identical. A lot of stuff that had been clarified in FAQs before is now laid out directly. Very clear definition of how fly works after it had changed like 3 or 4 times over the FAQs. The only thing I can think of off the top of my head that's worth a little thing worth mentioning is units that complete a fallback move within range of a transport that are out of engagement range. So in other words, you fall back out of combat and manage to get within that 3-inch bubble of a transport, you can jump into a transport as part of a fallback roof, which is something you could not do in 8th edition. Just a little thing I noticed.
I actually was not aware of that. That's a really neat trick. Looking at the movement phase, one of the things that I think is going to be the biggest adjustment for the most people is the new rule for unit coherency. If you're running a unit with more than 5 models, each model has to be within 2 inches of 2 models. So if you are running, say like I'm looking at Blood Angels and an army to build, say I'm running 5 Sanguinary Guard, I can chain them out as long as they're within old coherency, so 2 inches of each model, you're fine. The moment I hit 6, I have to make sure, and it's basically you're going to have to make little triangles if you want to actually spread out as much as possible. But that's something that's going to be a learning curve if you have if you've been playing 40k for any duration, because that's a really different change. It's going to make it hard. Like, you can't just daisy chain a group of models back to a character to get buffs anymore.
Old player flex.
Oh god.
Okay, no.
No, do it.
In the days of blast templates.
In the days of Yoel.
In the days of blast templates, where you had that little clear piece of plastic that you used to determine how many models went under the shell that they're dropping under my Hormagaunts, I got really good at keeping everything spaced out exactly 2 inches away from each other to reduce damage from that. So, those of you that ran horde armies in the days of blast templates, remember your skills, brothers! They will serve us once again!
They won't help you against blast weapons, so.
No. More on that later.
Okay.
The other thing worth mentioning is they specifically name coherency as 2 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically. Most anything where you're in range, 5 inches vertically is the value for that, which makes sense because that's one building level from how GW is doing all their buildings now. Which makes perfect sense, because that's kind of the unwritten rule we all followed anyway, is, you can be up one floor and you're good. Yeah. So, having it well-defined.
That just made life easy, but having a rule that actually says it keeps you from playing that one guy and him causing a stink over it.
Yep.
We all know the guy.
Yep. Psychic phase. Again, only one change I saw of note in that, and I didn't even notice this, somebody else that was talking about this called it out for me. The wording now indicates that you must do all casting with a one psych. Once you start making casts with a model, you have to finish everything it can cast before moving on to the next. This is, for some of us like me that only ever uses 1 or 2 psychers, it's not going to be a bit of difference. That's usually how I did it anyway. For Thousand Sons or Grey Knights players, on the other hand,
that's going to be, I'm not going to say annoying. it's just going to be something that I'm going to have to kind of adjust to. Because being able to go, like, with my Grey Knights and, like, have Voldus with 4 psychic powers because of his Lore Master ability, and being able to go, okay, I'm going to go over here, cast a spell with this guy, get an ability off, okay, cool, go over here to Voldus, have him do a thing to change what everyone's smites do, and now I'm doing extra smite, so I can go back to this guy, and I can go back to Voldus later, depending on everything. I can't do that anymore. You have to commit to a character, which is you're gonna have to change how you play if that's the style you're playing with. So like Eldar are gonna have to, you're losing a little bit of flexibility. You still have a lot of power in your psychic abilities, and you still have a lot of utility just for having them, if you're an army that does play them. But you're gonna have to be a lot more intelligent about how you actually deploy it. Like, when do you want to activate your Psyker that can cast 3 spells?
Yeah.
Like, when do you want to do that? Because you're going to have to get the most out of all 3 of them. I actually think Grey Knights are going to be not affected super bad for that. Just because I have a stratagem that I have 2 stratagems, 2 psychic powers that I take on my Warlord that are good to do at any time. Doesn't matter what's around it, and that's Warp Shaping, which I will need to do no matter what. And then I have the Ethereal Manipulation, which allows me to just farm a command point. So I can just cast those without having to really think. And it just kind of makes it, okay, so what's the one power that I'm going to cast, and then here's my 2 taxes.
And then all of your squads are typically only going to cast 1, so that's just go down the line and run through them.
Most Grey Knight units can only cast 1 spell.
You're right, it's the Eldar and the Thousand Sons that have tons of models that cast 2 or 3 powers.
Yeah, especially if you're playing Eldar. Like, that's going to be, you're going to have to be, it's going to limit your shenanigans, which, That's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, it is. Moving on. Shooting phase. So more changes here. These are one of the reasons the internet wargaming community is in varying states of on fire. Elephant in the room first. What do you want to talk about first?
There are like 3 elephants. I don't know which one you want me to pick.
The one that has the internet on fire.
So big guns never tire. Your tanks, your vehicles, your dreadnoughts can move and fire their heavy weapons without suffering any penalty, which means you're going to see a lot more mobile vehicles. Before you took and not many people are taking these, but you take a Predator Annihilator where it's, a bunch of las cannons, you don't want to move it because you're going to be suffering, your shots are going to be less impactful. Now, you can have that Predator zooming around the battlefield, just lazzing everything it comes in contact with.
Vehicles can be vehicles. I have a Coherency that's a 14-inch move, and I am excited.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I am a huge fan of Contemptor Dreadnoughts. You saw a lot of Leviathan Dreadnoughts in competitive play, and they are fantastic. I have had a couple. Every one I've had, I've gotten rid of. And I don't it's not because they're bad, they just don't fit what I like. They probably will now, honestly, because of the move and shoot. But here's the thing that I've been playing around with. I have a couple Contemptor Mortis Dreadnoughts, so 2 Cares assault cannons. And Contemptors have a decent movement. They have a 2+ shooting when you take them as the Mortis Dreads. Well, it goes to a 3-up, 2 assault cannons, that's 12 shots at 3+, super good. Now it's going to be 12 shots at 2+, after I move.
And the other half of the big guns never tire rule is vehicles, actually this may not be part of big guns never tire, but the other big change to vehicles, vehicles can now shoot into melee at the things that they're engaged with. So in 8th edition, the reason why you didn't take a lot of vehicles was I could send a few little measly Hormagaunts that will run up and bad touch a vehicle, and now it can't shoot that turn unless it happens to have the fly keyword, because the fly keyword lets you fall back and shoot, which doesn't do anymore because vehicles now have that innately.
The fly keyword was the strongest keyword in 8th.
And now it is just a movement modifier, so it is now no longer the best keyword in the game.
No, I do want one thing of clarification. You'd say vehicles can do that anyway. Vehicles cannot fall back and shoot natively. So that was a miss.
You're right.
That was a misspeak. It happens. They can shoot in combat. If you do have a vehicle and it falls back, it cannot shoot at other things because it still fell back unless you have a strategy.
I'm Ultramarine, so that messes with me. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm just used to being
able
to do that.
The Smurfs ruin it for everyone. So that's a really important thing, because one of the biggest, like you mentioned, just actually tagging vehicles, that was how, for your melee armies, that was how you actually dealt with them. You didn't kill vehicles.
No, you just walked up and gave them a gentle boop on the hull, and now they're out for a turn.
I mean, there were plenty of times when I was playing, I used to have a guard army that was a lot of Leman Russes and Basilisks and a lot of fun vehicles like that. And they would be great on my turn 1, and then on turn 2, well, okay, your Gene Stealers are hugging them, I have to move back. And then, eventually they just move back to the edge of the board and they can't go any farther. Yeah. And all he has to do is keep, 2 Gene Stealers just giving them little gentle scratches on the hull, and they do nothing. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. So now, to be clear on how it works, vehicles may fire everything that's not a blast weapon into whatever has them engaged in melee.
Yep. It isn't a -1.
At a -1, that's correct.
You can counteract that if you do give shooting buffs, even though we'll get into that. Buffing models has changed.
The other thing worth mentioning is, since blast weapons cannot fire into that engagement range, which makes sense, you're not going to put something that'll explode onto the tank directly into it, which is something that could happen in previous editions of the game and was hilarious when it did.
That's because you lack conviction if you don't do it. I'm just saying that's...
So, but what you can do now, you must declare all your targets at once, like before. But what you can do is go, okay, there are 2 cultists that are, beating on the hull of this Leman Russ tank. Well, I'm going to put the heavy bolters into them. I'm going to put the hull-mounted las cannon and the battle cannon into that enemy tank over there. You have to fire the heavy bolters first. If they clear everything engagement range, then you can shoot at the tank over there. Yeah. Otherwise, you just lose that shooting.
Yeah.
But
if you don't kill them, then if you don't kill those guys anyway, then it makes sense.
Yes, it makes sense. So
you're not losing anything to declare it that way.
So if I'm playing my Tyranids and I wrap a tank in 30 Hormagaunts, I have effectively still tar pitted it, but I have to do that with enough models to survive the damage it's putting into them, not just the couple of gentle hull bumps that the tanks will do. Where this is most exciting, as he said, is with Dreadnoughts, especially something like a Redemptor Dreadnought that has a melee weapon and carries 4 or 5 guns on it. Dreadnoughts suddenly went from, oh, I'm locked in combat with you, to you're locked in combat with me.
Yeah, and that goes to one of the better ways to deal with my Contemptor Dreadnought for him, because he's played Tyranids a lot against it, was you get Gene Stealers into it or something into it that can pick it apart over a turn or two. Well, now that may not be what you want to do, because on its lowest bracket, it hits on 4s.
I have my solution for that. I'm playing Marines going into 9th. I'll come back to Tyranids when we get a new codex.
Fixing the problem. But yeah, so that's a really...
I'm not that down on the Tyranids. I'm just having more fun with Marines.
That is a really big thing, though. And
it is.
Another thing with shooting that is, I think, going to be, I personally believe, more impactful to the competitive scene than vehicles being able to move and shoot heavy weapons and vehicles being able to shoot in combat, is the targeting characters rule.
Absolutely, this is a needed change.
It's going to change how you play the game from a competitive standpoint. It's going to affect how you play at kitchen table, but it's not going to be as impactful there. So, previously, yes.
Well, I was going to say, the TLDR is, for those of you that remember when characters had to join units to be protected, it's going to feel kind of like that. Go with the details.
Yeah. So previously in 8th edition 40k, they had changed the character rule, and it was a very weird thing. It caused a lot of problems. They had to FAQ it like 4 times. But basically what it meant was, if I have a character with less than 9 wounds, and I have another model closer to a model of my opponent's that's trying to shoot, they cannot shoot my character as long as there's something closer. Now, that meant that I was completely safe to take a character, like if I was wanting to play Marines, for instance. I could take a Tech Marine, which is the cheapest character option you have. Bog standard, no frills. Park it on an objective, and it could be standing in the middle of the open on that objective, and then I could park some scouts in a building where you couldn't interact with them.
In camo cloak, so they have a 2-up save.
Yeah, and you couldn't shoot my guy. It didn't matter if you had a clear line of sight with a Predator tank, you could not peg him. Now... they have to be within, what is it, 3
inches?
3 inches of at least three infantry models, or a vehicle or monster. So you can still I can still have that Tech Marine with a Dreadnought in front of him, and he's safe, which is flavorful as hell, and I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Or I can park a unit of Marines with him, which also makes more sense.
Spoiler alert. You're going to see a Ultramarines Smash Captain moving up, freaking World War II style, advancing behind infantry transports.
But even then, a thing about that, though, because of how the targeting rules work now, Smash Captains aren't nearly as good as they used to be. Because once you get your use out of them, it's going to be harder to protect them. Now, they're still going to be blenders. Like, it's just how it's going to work, especially if you're playing Blood Angels or White Scars or something like that. But... they're not going to be as resilient. So once again, it's making you play smarter.
And I'm actually bringing one now for a different reason than before. So previously, Blood Angels and White Scar Smash Captain, they were a missile. You sent them in to just go crater an area. And they could be, as long as they had anything in front of them, they were protected. Now, our rats are having fun and shaking the cage and doing parkour. They do parkour! Jake's resetting, one moment.
No, proceed.
No, I'm advancing. Basically, I'm looking at a character with a jump pack as a way that I can get a bonus model advancing with my transports.
Yeah.
So I have a transport with however many models in it. Character with a jump pack behind it, that's just like that model gained transport capacity. That's how I'm using them.
That's a good way to look at it.
That's how I'm using them now.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I like that.
Because he can suddenly, and if I need to get somebody in first, he can go 12-inch move, jump in the front. All right, boys, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. That's
really how I'm using them.
Yeah.
You'll see them in action later. I have one very nice model that I've put together that I'm going to bribe this man with some combination of food and money to make look really good like you do. Anyway, the last thing worth mentioning as far as shooting is blast weapons. We've hinted at this.
Yeah, we've actually talked about blast weapons in
We've
another
talked
video.
about blast weapons in another video, but to go over it again, blast weapons means that certain weapons categorized as blast weapons, there's a big list in the core rules of weapons that gain the blast keyword, and that just simply means firing them at a unit of six or more models. They have anything that rolls a random number of hits will now be guaranteed a minimum of 3.
Correction. It is not anything that has a random number of hits. Blast weapons are defined by a keyword, and there's a full list of them in the free PDF.
The
only reason I say
yes,
that is because there are some weapons that exist that are still you roll X dice, but they're not blast weapons.
I think most flamers aren't blast weapons,
Correct.
actually.
Flamers
Which is
are not blast
actually
weapons.
good, because if you have flamers on your vehicles, you want to be able to fire those auto-hitting weapons into melee.
Oh, charge a Bale Predator and see what happens.
Whoosh.
All the whoosh. What makes it through the initial whoosh, because you do spend the command points to shoot that.
Gets whooshed again.
Yes.
So a blast weapon that rolls a random number of hits will have a minimum of 3 when firing at 6+ models, and when firing at 11+ models, it says we'll have the rules say we'll have the maximum number of hits. We assume that's for all dice. Rules is written.
It is.
That means for all dice.
From what I've seen in the research I've done on it and seeing what playtesters are talking about, it is all dice.
And that's what the rules seem to. There's been a lot of debate. That's why I word it that way, but seems to work that way. And honestly, I feel like it puts blast weapons back to what they felt like they were previously.
One of the reasons that we've personally waited as long as we have to put out a video on this is we wanted to get some more concrete information before we did it. We don't like jumping on the speculation train.
It's not the type of stuff we want to do. No judgment for those that do.
Because speculating, like theory crafting's fun. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to say, okay, this is what I think it is. With that,
especially since we want to keep this slant toward either new players or players that are new to the competitive side of things. We want to keep things more grounded in verified information.
Yeah. So, going to the next phase, the charge phase.
You touched on the biggest change to the charge phase a moment ago.
Yeah, it's my personal favorite phase in the game. Has gotten weirder. Some good things and some bad things. The biggest change to it is Overwatch.
It's a strat!
It's a stratagem now. For everyone but Tau.
So I'm going to cut in with my personal feelings on that. Overwatch, and they indicated that there may be some units that will get the ability to fire Overwatch without using the stratagem. They specifically said that the Crusade, the narrative based where your army levels up and units can get specific buffs, one of the things they can get is the ability to fire Overwatch. Yeah. Without that, you won't see that in competitive play. That is meant for narrative. But they have specifically opened that design space to say this unit gets to fire Overwatch automatically. Yeah. Which I like because that's something else that you can give a unit to define its role.
Yeah.
But as far as the Tau, I think it just says that the Tau Codex needs a rework.
Tau are in a weird spot. Let's not go make this a Tau thing. The reason I mentioned that is Tau's For the Greater Good ability, which is the ability that allows multiple units to fire Overwatch when one unit is declared, has just rolled in that Tau may Overwatch. And it literally is an editor's note that says, as per 8th edition.
Yeah.
So they can Overwatch like normal. So if you love shooting, you like Overwatch as it was, play Tau.
Yeah, and nothing will change.
But so other than that, it is a stratagem. So whenever someone declares a charge on you, you have to spend command points in order to Overwatch them.
And if you're playing match play, you can only use a stratagem once per phase, so that means you get one unit to fire Overwatch, make it count.
Yep.
This is actually going to speed up the charge phase because there's going to be no more of the, let's go ahead and shoot it anyway. It means whatever you Overwatch with is going to be very important, but that also means it's going to be a lot easier to get stuff in because you don't have to worry about withering Overwatch from a lot of things.
And one thing I want to say, because we mentioned we didn't want to start talking about this until we had more information. Here's the reason why. The early things we were seeing, the early leaks and the early official things from Games Workshop, made it look like Melee and if you would have asked me 2-3 weeks ago, I would have told you that 9th edition was looking like a melee-centered game.
Oh yeah, I was getting ready to dust my Tyranids off.
Yeah, it was looking really good for melee. And then as things have progressed, it is not. It is still a shooting edition. 40k is still a shooting man's game.
It's going to be better for melee.
But
not as much as the internet would tell you.
Your melee armies are going to have to be smarter. You're going to have to play them correctly. And I think for most melee armies, the way you're going to have to play them is you're going to have to be very much the beta strike. You want to wait, you want to draw the shooting armies in, and then you want to take their heads off. Now, with that, one of the reasons for that, so Overwatch is gone, which is a boon to, not gone, but it's changed, which is a huge boon to melee armies. If I'm running my Berserkers, and I've got 2 units of Berserkers I'm charging in with, I know that one of them is going to get in unmolested by shooting, which is phenomenal. However,
to be fair, I would hope that both of them would get there unmolested unless you're playing Slaanesh.
Then everything's molested. However, there have been some other changes that have very much made it more difficult to run melee armies. A really big one being that if you declare a charge against multiple targets, you have to roll enough to make both targets. In the last battle report we did, there was a turn where I declared a charge on a vehicle and on another unit, knowing that if I don't make the 10 to get to the vehicle, I can get to the other unit. Now, if I did that in 9th edition, I can have a unit that's 4 inches away and a unit that's 8 inches away. If I declare both of them, I have to roll an 8. It doesn't matter that I can scoot over and get into the 4. That is a balancing thing, I think. Like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it seems weird to me, but at the same time, without Overwatch being there to punish that behavior, I get it.
And the thing worth mentioning there, sorry to cut you off, but the thing worth mentioning there is you do not have to, if you do multi-charge, you do not have to touch everything you multi-charge.
You just have to roll enough to do it.
Yes.
And there's still things you can do. Like, you can still get cheeky and, like, block in multiple units and all this. Like, you can still do the smart play with your melee army to still tag things and get all that. Another thing is a thing that for melee armies, a cornerstone for competitive play has been boxing in or tri-pointing. You get a unit and you're able to get models from your assaulting unit on 3 different points of it. You tri-tip it, which means that they cannot fall back.
Should I grab some example models?
Yeah, back in a second. So as we were mentioning with tri-tipping things or 3-pointing things, say you have a unit of Gene Stealers. The unit will be much larger because Gene Stealers versus a Space Marine.
Gribble.
Gene Stealers make their assault. They get enough of an assault to actually move around the unit that they are fighting. And basically, you make a triangle shape around the model or around as much of the unit as possible. What that does is, rules as written, in order for a model to be able to fall out of combat, unless it has the fly keyword, it cannot pass over another model's base. It cannot pass over enemy models. So, if you do this correctly, this Marine cannot move without passing over one of the Gene Stealer's bases, which means that it cannot leave combat. There is a stratagem that allows you to leave and allows you to move over models. That is something that's going to make, like, and once again, it is a stratagem. When you're playing match play, you can only do it once a phase.
Right.
But you're going into a game where everyone has command points. Everyone's going to be able to do it multiple times in a game. And usually when you're doing this, you're going to be doing it on something very specific. Yes. So the fact that a stratagem is there that will allow you to just run out of combat, not only run out of combat, but allows you to fight again. Like, it allows you to still act after running out. It's going to make, and another reason that you tri-tip something, the obvious thing is, yes, the model can't run out of combat, which means it's not safe anymore. But when this is happening, you are completely safe if you're the assaulting army.
You're literally taking their own model hostage because they can't shoot into melee.
Yeah.
This is how I would protect a unit of Gene Stealers, is because when you know about what to expect damage output wise, you can touch a unit of models enough. I'm going to kill some of them. I know I'm not going to kill all of them. And then in your pile-in afterward, you just wrap the last couple of guys remaining. I have your guys hostage. You can't shoot me next turn. Man, you want to see Tau players angry?
Making sure they can't shoot your units.
You want to see Tau players angry? Try tip something that doesn't have fly.
Yeah. But so that is a really big thing. And what you would see people doing is you would go up, tri-tip a couple units, and you don't care how many of them you kill, you don't care how many they kill back, because you're safe during your next turn, and then you can hopefully kill them during your turn. Or if you're Kraken, you have the ability to fall back and shoot with it. Like, it's
the Tyranids I played were Kraken, I can just run away and assault something else. So this is going to completely change how I have to play my Tyranids. I am not saying Tyranids are dead. I love my bugs. I'm going to have to completely rewrite my book on how I play them. The Marines, I know exactly what I want to do with them, and I know what to expect out of them. So that's why I'm going to be taking them into 9th as my primary.
I think shooty bugs will be good. Like shooty monster nids will be fun. Anyway, so there's that. That's something I wanted to touch on because melee is my favorite thing to do in the game. So that's something that's I've been looking at. So that's a really huge change there.
Okay. Fight phase is less changed than the charge phase. There is one other thing that will also help tone down the melee craziness a little bit, and this is the other reason why I say I'm going to have to relearn how to play my Tyranids. To use the old term, it's not the term in the book, but supporting models that are not... So, engagement range is the same. Models within an inch of an enemy model can fight them. But then the other models that can fight previously was anything within an inch of a model within an inch. So with clever base stacking, especially with 25 mil bases, not with Gene Stealers because they're all but with something like, say, orcs that are mostly vertical, you could stack them cleverly and get 3, sometimes almost 4 rows of bases in. That may be part of the reason why orcs moved to 32, why a lot of stuff, not just orcs, have moved to 32 mil bases.
And that would make sense as why Tyranids wouldn't, because it's such a huge part of how they play. They would need
that. But to keep me from being able to stack my gaunts 4 deep, because I've practiced it, I can in an ideal situation.
And it's punishing, even for something like a gaunt.
Because that way, if I can't get 30 models around you, I can still get most of them in. And I should be rewarded for getting those models around you, not just attacking from the front. So now it is not an inch of anything within an inch. So everything within engagement range within an inch can fight. To support, to be not actually engaged yourself, but still helping, it is within half inch of another model within half an inch. So again, practical example to demonstrate this. We're going to turn this sideways. This model is not quite in base, but he's within half an inch. His buddy is within half an inch of him. He can help. This model is toe tapping within 1 inch. He can still fight. His buddy behind him is within half an inch here, but we don't have a half inch here. This guy previously would have been able to fight. He now cannot. So for what that means for most melee armies that run large numbers of models is one of your layers that you would previously had contributing attacks before now no longer can, and you're going to have to be smarter and wrap around more to take advantage of having those big 15 plus models.
And that's another moment where like that extra inch, quote unquote, that you can get from piling in and having that extra layer of combat, like that'll turn your like, if you just need a 9-inch charge to get in, that's going to affect how many models you have fighting a lot more than it used to. So
now you can't just get in.
There are going to be times where you're going to need to do better. That's the thing.
Movement is... If movement wasn't the most important phase of the game before, and I really think it was, it certainly is now when you count the charge phase as as a second movement phase, because it basically is.
Well, movement sets up your charges.
Movement sets up it. Movement defines everything.
Psychic. Like it defines the entire game.
Honestly, you're stuck at home in this time where a lot of us are. You want to get better with the game? Throw a bunch of terrain on the table and put different models in different places and look at how would I maneuver to get to them, how would I set up those charges. Just play chess with your own models. Anyway.
So so we mentioned the fight phase. The morale phase is completely different. I honestly am not super well read on the morale phase. I've been looking at other things.
So I'm going to go over this I prepared this. I'm going to go over this for you. I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version and commentate on it. So, first part of the morale phase works exactly the same.
Okay.
The morale test is for any units that have lost models It's the same roll. It's the same roll. You roll a d6 and add the number of models from the unit that have been destroyed.
Okay.
Applying any leadership modifiers because there are armies that have those shenanigans.
Ultramarines.
If the result is equal to or less than the highest leadership characteristic in the unit, the morale test is passed. Nothing happens.
Okay.
Unmodified roll of 1 always results in a passed morale test. I'm pretty sure that's new.
That
I
is
know
that
that's
is new,
new.
yeah.
So there are some units that have had that as a rule, so they'll probably get some new special sauce in an FAQ. Hopefully. Anyway, so previously, how did it work in 8th edition?
So 8th edition morale was... It could be really swingy. So normally you lose a bunch of models, you roll your dice compared to the leadership. Whatever the difference is, whatever you roll over your leadership, that's how many models were just removed. So say, going back to the Gene Stealer, so say that this unit before this point was 15 models deep.
Mm-hmm.
This unit just lost 10 models. Say they're out of synapse, you actually have to roll on them. Their leadership, what, 8, 9, something like that?
Gene Stealers are...
They have a good leadership.
They're no, I think no, they're not. You can tell how long it's been since I played my units. Either that or how good I am at keeping stuff in synapse range. In either case, if you're out of synapse range and you have to roll, it doesn't matter what their leadership is. They're taking casualties.
Yeah, because absolute best case scenario, I know they're not leadership 10, but if they were, you've lost 10 models. You have, like, since you're at the same amount of losses as your leadership, you roll a dice, and it's just whatever you roll on that dice is how many models you lose.
Yep.
Which is painful.
And it gets worse from there as you take more casualties.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
A guard unit that has, like a conscript squad that has 30 models, you as the opposing player put enough shots in them to kill 16, 18 of them, you can ignore the rest of the squad. Yep. They're going away unless they have a commissar to beat them into line.
And there is a stratagem, Insane Bravery, that exists that you can make a unit pass. It's different though. Insane Bravery is a once a game stratagem.
Whoa! I missed that.
Yeah, it is once a game you can use Insane Bravery.
That's woof. That's another thing changing for my tier is because oftentimes I would fling a unit of Gene Stealers forward for a first turn charge, Insane Bravery them to make sure they stayed around and make the other player deal with it. Now that burns my use of that for the game. I understand why they made it available less option because morale is actually less punishing in those situations now. So here's how it works in 9th edition. As I said, the test is the same goal to pass. If you fail, you now lose a unit. The book uses the term fleas. Narratively, that could just be you're getting your butt kicked that hard, whatever.
Or you're a guardsman and you actually are screaming run away.
Right, but they use the term flee because nothing that triggers on a model or a unit being destroyed triggers in the morale phase.
Correct.
So you lose a model, you lose one model, period. Then you take a combat attrition test. This is the exact same roll that you would do when a transport gets blown up, which is number of models in the transport, roll that many dice on any ones, another model is removed.
Yes.
With the modifier that if the unit is below half strength, you subtract one of that result. So now you're losing models on 1s and 2s. Something like Marines, Custodes, even Sisters of Battle that mostly run 5-6-man squads may never be affected by that.
Yeah.
Guard, Tyranids, Gene Stealer Cult, Orcs. You're going to need to really work those mechanics that give you rerolls, let you ignore morale checks, auto pass, that kind of stuff, because now you won't just lose a unit, but without being able to insane bravery stuff, those losses are going to start adding up quick. It also makes the morale phase a little more dramatic because sometimes you're going to pick up 4 dice and roll 3 1s. And suddenly, they're gone. I mean, how many times has our friend Matt jammed an assault cannon? Now, assault cannons don't jam anymore, but go all the way back to 3rd edition. The assault cannon was 4 shots. If you rolled 4 1s on it, it actually had a rule that it jammed, and you couldn't fire it again for the game. That was a holdover from when the game was more of an RPG. That man has jammed more assault cannons than should be statistically possible.
Love you, man.
Love you, man. We're doing this because we love you.
God.
Anyway, so that's how the morale check works now, and it does a little thing that may not matter, but it does say, like every, and this is more just to make it consistent with everything else, you start with whoever's active player, whoever's turn it is, and you go back and forth making checks one unit at a time. Yeah. The only time I can think of that would matter is if one player had a unit that had an aura effect that modified leadership.
Which, that being said, I can see that mattering a lot more, because you will have that moment when you're playing against the Harlequin player and their Death Jester pegs a character and all of a sudden you have a -3 to your leadership mod and half your unit runs away.
Or you had two characters and a Raptor squad of Night Lords all land at one point with a collective -3 aura here. And then the two squads that they're in range of just go, nope.
Yeah, they basically land, go boo, and your guys go, nope, I'm out. Another thing that's important that I did know about is after everything's said and done, you have to check coherency. Everything has to be in coherency. It's a big thing to talk about. Mm-hmm. But what you have to do this time, instead of the old rules being if at the beginning of a movement phase, if a unit was not in coherency, it had to move back into coherency. Mm-hmm. Now, you remove models until you're in coherency.
To help enforce that, even for the charge move, you must remain in unit coherency. Whereas previously, it didn't say you had to. I think
you could spread out. You could spread out.
I think that was always implied, but it was never specifically called out.
It was never called out in any FAQs
and doing things like I'm charging here. Oh, but the guy that gives me a buff is back here.
Or even having I'm going to charge 2 units. You could go, like, the microphone is now a unit. You could do this if you have enough to make the charge, because the unit didn't have to stay in coherency. Mm-hmm. But what you would have to do is, after everything's said and done, when you were free to move, you had to move back into coherency. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a little thing with it. It was a little bit weird, but, I mean, it didn't hurt anything, I thought.
But it was one of those things where things got weird.
It got complicated, yeah.
Well, especially, what if you, after all the fighting was done, you have these Gene Stealers are a bad example because they're damn fast. But let's say you had Centurions that are a move of 5.
And they can't move back into coherency.
And they're 12 inches away from each other. They can't move back. What do? Do they just do the best they can? I don't know.
I've seen it ruled that if a unit is unable to get back into coherency, the unit's removed. I don't know if that was ever official anywhere, if that was just a rule.
I don't know if it, but again, that's the type of question that now no longer matters.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, at the end of that, if anything that is out of coherency is removing models and it specifically says one at a time until they're back in coherency. And I'm calling out one at a time for a reason, because what that means is when you get below the 6 mark, you now are no longer having the... You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I had a completely separate thought. Finish yours.
When you get below... So, unit of 6. I end up with this. I end up with this, let's say. So I now have 2 models on the end that are out of coherency because they're not within the 2 inches of 2 models. Pull 1. I'm down to 5. I now only have to be within range of 1 model.
So now,
So now the unit's back into coherency. Yeah. So the one at a time means you can be tactical in how you pull models.
And you can't just lose an entire unit through to coherency.
And it won't and something can't just daisy chain and kill an entire unit.
So the idea I had, and I want to say this, because I mentioned a Death Jester, and then my brain started thinking about Death Jesters, because I love Death Jesters.
Because killer clowns from space.
Yeah. Death Jesters have a specific ability that whenever they shoot, you have to take a morale test. If you fail the morale test, or whenever something fails a morale test after being shot by it, the controller of the Death Jester gets to pick what flees. You can pick models in such a way to leave your opponent's unit out of coherency, which will then make them lose even more models.
Oh, that's going to be insane.
That's terrifying! And I love it!
I
love it!
They're going to have to FAQ that.
No, they're not. I think it's intentional.
No, I mean, they're going to have to FAQ that to say, yes, this is how we want it to work.
That's how it's worded, though. It's already worded that way.
Yes, but...
They don't have to FAQ it. FAQs are to fix problems. This is not a problem.
But there's going to be people saying it is a problem. They're going to have to FAQ it to say it's not a problem.
Dude, there's people that talk about everything as if it's a problem. Like, when they make models, people are like, that model is not... No, they shouldn't make that. We need to stop them. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter, man. And if you're running an army that a Death Jester shooting one of your troops' choices is going to end up causing you to lose because you lose an extra model or two to coherency, you're not going to win that game anyway.
Fair. I'm just saying it's just one of those things where I see, like, that's going to cause some salt.
Have you been on the internet?
I know, I'm just...
You could, like, Games Workshop could be like, we're going to send everyone who's bought a Warhammer model over the past 10 years $100 for each model they've bought, and people would still bitch.
Oh, absolutely.
And then Games Workshop would go under if they did it, but that's not the point. So that's the main phases of the game broken down now. Couple more things that I've personally seen that I think are very impactful, that I think are very interesting. Modifications to hit and to wound. Mm-hmm. You are now capped at... You can only get something to a +1 or a -1. You can never continue to go. However, they're still cumulative. So even though for example, even though I can only buff my Dreadnought to a +1 to hit, right? Yeah. If, say, I have something in combat and my Dreadnought can shoot in combat now, which is awesome, it's at a -1, I can give it 2 +1 modifiers. The first one will negate the -1, and then the next one will take it up. So if you're firing against something, this unit has a -1 to hit, this unit has a +1 to shoot. If I can give it another +1, it will negate the minus, and you'll still get your +1, but you can never get up to the absurd things you used to be able to. Like for Eldar, having unshootable flyers.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing worth mentioning is that 6s now always hit for all armies.
Yes.
Again, to prevent that you can't shoot me because I've manipulated the rules type situation.
Which was actually really fun with Orcs, because they didn't care.
Yes.
That was Orcs were the best. Orcs were one of the best armies at shooting flyers because of that, which was hilarious.
Yeah, so guys, you have Orcs to thank for fixing the shooting modifier mechanics, for proving that that's what needed to be done.
Because, as always... There's never enough DACA. We need more DACA. The Orcs knew we needed more DACA. Now we all have more DACA. Thank you, Orcs.
Thank you, Orcs.
Thank you.
The other thing that might help some of you understand that is those of you that have played 5th edition D&D or any other role-playing game that has an advantage-disadvantage system, it's the exact same idea. Advantage in D&D is kind of like having a reroll on something, for those of you that don't play D&D, but the idea is you can have advantage from 4 sources, and that's the same as having it from 1 source, but then you get disadvantage from something else. Cancels out your advantage on a 1-to-1 basis. So it's the exact same idea. You total up all the pluses you get from something, you total up all the minuses you get from something, and then whatever it ends up, the most it can modify is ever going to be a +1 or a -1.
So there's still a reason for Eldar to have the, lightning fast reflexes strategy that gives a -1 to hit.
Right.
Because you'll have yes, I have a jetpack that's a built-in -1. Oh, you've got a +1 on it, or a +2 even, so now you're hitting me on a +1. Cool. Here's my stratagem. Here's my command points. I'm back to being hard to hit again. Mm-hmm. It makes sense. It's still there, but it turns it into more of a tit for tat instead of you're going to try to shoot me. No, actually.
This isn't Magic the Gathering. Games Workshop does not want a player to be able to just not let somebody play a game.
I feel attacked.
Yeah, you kind of are being attacked. Blue Mage. How rude. Anyway. Bye. Alright, so for going into 9th edition, where does that leave us? Jake, what do you think is going to be your primary army going into 9th?
I've got 2 that I'm looking at, and I'm going to play a little bit of everything because that's how I work. That I have a problem. I try to focus on an army. I'm learning I can't. I end up wanting to try other things. And there's a lot of things that look really interesting to me. The new Necron stuff looks really cool, for instance.
You'll be seeing a lot of them on the channel.
Yeah. I did a thing. Anyway.
Hey, don't feel bad. We already had a bunch of Necrons.
Yeah, we did. And then
we're just finishing what we started.
I continue acquiring them. Anyway, so Necrons are interesting, but I think I'm going to settle on either Blood Angels or Grey Knights. Grey Knights were what I had settled on and actually really dug into and really enjoyed before the world tried to end.
Not today, Nurgle.
Not today, no. But with that being said, I really like them. I want to keep experimenting with them. With having a set number of command points, which is more than what I had beforehand because I had all these things. Like, basically, I had all these stratagems I needed to use. So even though I could run a dual battalion and have, my 12, 13 command points, whatever, however I built it, I had to use a certain amount. So being able to not be taxed to take a dual battalion, for instance... It's freeing up points to take models I like, and models that are really good but didn't quite fit. And it's also allowing me to try other stratagems. So I'm really intrigued to try them. The only thing I'm nervous about is they're already an elite army, and I already had to squeeze to get the army composition together. And one of the things that, looking at what we do know, what you and I have seen with the new Force Org charts, the HQ slot is tight.
Yes.
And
Hero Hammer is not going to be a thing unless you're willing to pay the
more
command.
Difficult. Yeah,
unless you're willing to pay the command points for it.
No, and I actually think that's fair because most of the time your characters will have built-in rules and things that can be recreated through stratagems, and or at least to some extent or another. It's kind of vary depending on what you're playing. But like Astaroth, for instance, and like the big Blood Angels characters that do all these crazy buffs. Are better than some of the stratagems. So paying command points to get the buffs is how you got to look at it.
Yeah, but so the answer to that is, are you even gonna take? You're not going to automatically take 2 Smash Captains anymore, like you did before. So. You may not even take 1 because if you want Astaroth and Lamarties.
Yeah, if you're running a lot of Death Company, you will want to run Astaroth and Lamarties potentially, and then you have the Sanguinor, which buffs everybody.
And there's your 3 HQ right there.
Well, so one thing I will say, in looking at the Force Org chart, and this is I didn't mean to quite go into this yet, but this is also a rule.
This is very relevant. This is very relevant.
Supreme Command attachments have changed. Supreme Command attachment is you take a Supreme Commander or a heavy support choice. When you take it, it has to be a Lord of War choice, not heavy support. When you take your Lord of War choice, to say it's like Gulliman or something like that, that can be an HQ. You take it; it has to be your HQ.
It has to be your Warlord.
It has to be your Warlord. Sorry, but you just get to add it onto something without having command points.
You get it for free.
So what that means is you can take your battalion, which gives you 3 HQ choices, plus your Supreme Command, which does not penalize you, and get your 4th HQ. So most of your armies. I don't see any army that will not do the Supreme Command attachment plus. I don't see that being a thing. I genuinely don't, because it's a free slot. And slots are things you're going to have to pay for going forward. So getting that free resource is worth it. But so I'm looking at a possible 4, for if you're taking 1 detachment plus Supreme Command, it's 4 HQ slots. My old Grey Knight list ran 6 HQs. And they were all phenomenal.
And so it just may not function the way you want it.
Exactly. So that's why I'm looking at keeping my options open. I still want to try it. There's still things that I want to do. There's things that have gotten better because of the direction the game is going.
Yes.
And there's things that have gotten worse. Every army's benefited and lost something. That's part of it. Like my Grey Knights, they are they can do some shooting. They have some really good shooting options, but at the core of it, they are a melee army. So I'm going to have to play smart. But you already had to play smart with Grey Knights to get the most out of them. But it's going to be more. It's kind of doubling down into that. So those are the ones I'm looking at. Blood Angels as well, just because they're super flexible. They can do a lot. And if Dreadnoughts are getting great, nobody does melee Dreadnoughts like Blood Angels.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
That's the thing. So what are you thinking? I know that the bugs, as much as you love them, they're probably not going to be your first choice.
How they're going to operate has changed so much. I don't want to play them out of the gate. And as silly as this sounds, if the Tyranids shooting is what has gotten a lot better, that makes me less likely to want to play them. I've always preferred, not that I don't think Tyranids should be able to shoot, I've just always preferred playing Tyranids melee first, which I was able to do with Kraken very well in 8th, but as 8th got along and you could see the little changes GW is putting in, I needed that shooting support more and more. they may go to be my fun army. They may go to be the,
and
we're playing an apocalypse game? Cool. I'm going to be the NPC. I'm going to put every bug I have on the board and make you guys fight
That's more
me.
than likely what my knights are going to end up being, because knights have been hurt by a few things. Specifically, one thing that we didn't mention in the rule section, I'm going to go ahead and talk about now. Terrain has changed.
Terrain
has changed vastly. There's different things that you're going to have to talk to your opponent about, even on a kitchen table level. You're going to have to look at terrain and go, okay, here's where the footprint is if your terrain doesn't already have a footprint. You're going to have to go, does this count as being mild cover, heavy cover, whatever, because each thing has a different profile and everything it does. Here's where it gets tricky, though, and I think this is going to be more impactful than the modifiers that the terrain gives. Line of sight.
Yes.
You cannot draw line of sight through buildings. If you're on one side of a terrain feature that is at least, I think it's like at least 5 inches tall.
Yes.
Then you cannot draw line of sight through it.
Now it has to have the obscuring keyword, but pretty much the way they
Almost
worded it, almost
does.
every building should have the obscuring keyword.
Yeah. So that causes some weird situations. Because of another part of that rule, the moment that you step into a ruin, or the moment you step into a piece of obscuring terrain, then you can see through it to shoot, and you can be shot at.
Yep.
So what that's going to do is going to cause some really weird scenarios. So where, off the face of it, it looks like my Titans and things have gained something, because they can very easily hide behind large buildings, the moment that they can even step into the footprint of a building. But the moment that you get something that can deal with a Titan into the footprint of the building that the Titan's hiding behind, you have line of sight on it. And there's no penalties for you to shoot at it.
Well, and the other thing to be worth clarifying about the obscuring keyword is, to simplify things, and this is the good part of it, obscuring specifically says if it's 5 inches tall or taller, you don't worry about what windows or doors or anything like that. There's no more drawing true line of sight. If it has the obscuring keyword, that just means you can't see through it. You can see into it, but you can't see through it, and that extends upward
all the way up,
with a very notable exception. But what that means is no more this, I can see that guy's hat through that window there, I'm going to shoot the unit. It just removes all of that. It saves a ton of time. True line of sight is very flavorful, is very cinematic. It also wastes a shit ton of time.
And if that's what you like, do it for your casual
that
games.
just means you don't use the obscuring keyword. This is why the keywords are great. The other part of the obscuring keyword is that infinite block line of sight does not apply if the thing being targeted is a flyer or has 18 or more wounds. So knights can only hide behind a building if they can literally hide behind a building. Yeah. Flyers can only hide behind a building if they can literally hide behind a building.
Yeah. But that one of the things that's interesting is when you look at the rules off the base of it with the obscuring rule and everything, it looks like it would cut line of sight terribly for most armies. It would keep shooting galleries from being a thing. But I think what's going to end up happening is, in practice, you're going to end up being able to abuse is a strong word, but you're going to end up being able to use the fact that, yes, this building that's keeping me from seeing your models, I just need to step into it and then I can shoot you. That's going to make it more difficult to hide things, and it's going to make you can have a really dense board, but you can still draw really good lines of sight.
But what that means, and what I'm hoping is going to be the result, is that now terrain is not going to be something that we maneuver around just a set of stats. Because let's face it, especially if you're doing ITC, which had the rule of bottom floor of buildings block line of sight to solve that same problem of using true line of sight, it made terrain functional without having to have 30 different discussions about what is and is not visible through a piece of terrain. But that also turned terrain into just a set of walls that blocked line of sight. Now terrain is something that you're not just going to be moving around, but through and in and on. So I'm hoping that, yes, it's no longer going to be, this is a magic wall that we can just hide behind forever. Yeah. But it's going to make terrain something that you interact with a whole lot
and
more
it definitely
in
will.
new ways.
Well, it definitely will. Like I've come up with an idea of how to use some tools that my Grey Knights have with the new terrain rules that I think could be really good. I'm not going to talk about it here. I'd much rather show you that in a game. But like there's a few tricks and things to use and really take advantage of how that obscuring keyword works that I think is going to be really fun. I'm excited to try it. But yeah, that's something that is also can even be considered to be a hit to melee armies because of that.
It's whether it ends up being a benefit or a hindrance, we're gonna have to learn all over again.
But it's gonna this is my, and I could be wrong. Part of me hopes I'm wrong because I do love melee. I think that melee armies are going to be you have to be more cerebral with it. You're going to have to be patient, and that's something that I've learned with the Grey Knights is for the most part, you are not the aggressor. If you see an opportunity to pin down your opponent, you do. But the entire idea behind my Grey Knight list and playing Grey Knights at a competitive level was you can move up some really hard to shift units and hold a section of the board and then take small strategical and surgical strikes and kind of take things out that way. And I think that's how all melee armies are going to have to play.
Yep. So to lead this back to what started off on this long tangent, this is why I'm not going to be playing my Tyranids as main going into 9th, because how I wanted to play them before was the hyper-aggressive, the Zerg Rush, the I am in your face turn 1, and I just want to keep applying pressure and keep applying pressure. I'm not saying Tyranids are bad, but the play style I specifically built for, I don't know if I can play them that way now.
Now, that being said, the board is smaller. You're going to be able to take what was an almost guaranteed turn 1 charge and turn it into a guaranteed turn 1 charge.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be worth playing around, but I do think that overall in more matchups, your Space Marines will be the better thing to take.
It's just, there's so many questions that I don't have about the Tyranids. Plus, I feel the Tyranids are one of the armies that came out of the Psychic Awakening books with the least. And I'm not saying Blood of Baal was bad for us.
Blood of Baal is a good book.
It finished our codex.
But Blood of Baal had some very powerful stuff in it.
But we didn't get the level of buff that everybody else did out of it, because what we did at Blood and Baal finished a codex that I felt was unfinished. And I'm not throwing shade at GW for that, because the rate at which they were throwing codexes out during that, several codexes came out unfinished is an unfair word. Yeah. Unpolished.
Well, and I also think too, like going back to talking about Grey Knights, because that's what I have knowledge about.
Grey Knights were the same way.
Grey Knights got a really big boon out of Psychic Awakening, but the thing that pushed them to being able to compete was not Psychic Awakening, even though that gave them a lot of their really neat tricks and a lot of the powerful tools they're using. It was the fact that they had 3 rounds of points reductions that Tyranids never got. Tyranids got point increases, and then they got a very piddly group. And granted, Blood of Baal is a great book. It gave really good stuff, but they got their codex finished after they've been hit, their best units being made more expensive over and over again. So the thing that made Grey Knights possible to play was not the Psychic Awakening book, even though that's what allowed them to take advantage of it. It was the fact that their points costs got low enough that we could field enough to make it worth it. And that it comes from being some of the first codexes released.
Tyranids were in the first half. They're in the same problem. The original Space Marine Codex was even worse. The Chaos Marine Codex was in a similar mode.
When the Chaos Marine Codex first came out, it looked phenomenal, but then we started to see the second. I'm going to call them the second stage of 8th edition releases, where they just started getting really good. And
because you can see very obviously how the later 8th edition books, how much they learned from the early 8th edition books. Look at the Sisters of Battle Codex and how
the different versions of the indexes. And
after all these years, GW has struggled to find like an identity and a playstyle for the Sisters of Battle. They did and the big reason was they did a beta codex and actually listened, but then they that may be, because I'm going to call the Sisters of Battle Codex for 8th edition like a full relaunch of the line, because it feels like a new army. I am this close to building them, because the more I learn about them, the more I am intrigued by the Miracle Die mechanic.
They're a very like, once again, it's a very thought-heavy army.
So what I have decided to do instead for my new edition, new army, is the Custodes, because I am also very intrigued by what they can do. They are a very small, very elite army that, quite frankly, kind of plays how I wish my Marines played. Small aside, if Custodes didn't exist and Marines played like Custodes, then Marines would feel a lot more like they do in the fluff, where they're just these unstoppable killing machines and 20 Marines can conquer a whole battlefield. That's what the Custodes are. You have a couple squads of normal guardians. Here's 6 Terminators in the middle of the battlefield, and a couple of tanks or dreadnoughts, and that's a Custodes army. And
yeah, I was gonna say an army of 22 models is
right.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying Custodes shouldn't exist. It's just they play more like Marines would play if you take the fluff at face value. So I'm really interested in playing a very small, very elite army, seeing how that plays. I feel like it will reward me more for skillful play. It will punish me more for making mistakes, which will make me learn. So they are the army that I am going to be building going into 9th. But as far as what I'm actually going to run, you've seen me build a whole bunch of new Primaris. I've got Intercessors. I've got the Vanguard out of the Shadow Spear box. I have 3 Rhinos, 4 Predators, a Land Raider Crusader, 4 Storm Talons, a Stormhawk, a Storm Raven, 1 Whirlwind, a Redemptor Dreadnought, an Ironclad Dreadnought, a Venerable Dreadnought, an Impulsor with a second Impulsor on away, and I just bought a Repulsor. I want my armor back in the game, baby. Oh yes, and my real baby, the Sakaran Battle Tank. If those guys are good when they do the Forge World Index, this is worth mentioning simply because it's going to come out with 9th edition. So the GW Rules team that has done the main codexes and the core rulebook is now writing the Forge World Indexes. And this is I'm not saying this to crap on Forge World specifically, but the Forge World team that did the rules was never working enough with the main GW Rules team, and that's why Forge World
rules
units
became disjointed. They were either almost unusable because they weren't good enough, or they were game-breakingly powerful.
Leviathan Dreadnought when you put them in certain armies that can buff them.
Yeah, but that was more an Iron Hands problem than a Leviathan problem, let's be honest.
But they were able to take a unit that was really good by itself and then make it busted.
I still stand that was the Iron Hands problem.
I'm just saying it was good enough that they were able to then abuse it.
Yeah, that's fair. But you can do the same thing with Contemptors. Or Redemptor.
Or
arguably Redemptors.
Or Repulsor Executioners. Fair.
But anyway.
Iron Hands and Vehicles. Anyway. So the point is, I have all these tanks. I love tanks. I love the idea of mechanized infantry. I want to have Marines in transports with Gulliman and maybe a character or two in a jump pack moving up with that armored column just to take over the board and go, I am here. Come and take it from me if you dare, with aircraft flying overhead, strafing things that dare come out of their hiding holes.
Yeah, you guys are going to see us doing a lot of experimenting with our armies going forward. I'm very excited to do it. I really am. It's something I love. My favorite part of any game, doesn't matter what it is the learning and experimental type. So we are going to have one more. We're going to have one more battle to celebrate the end of 8th edition. And it's going to be the culmination of our Chaos versus Imperium campaign.
Yep.
We're finishing models. It's getting delayed slightly because a model that he wants for it's been on back order for a while. We've been trying to get it. It's been difficult.
If it doesn't come in this week, I have an alternate list. It's going to break with the theme of the idea of building off the Vanguard. I have a different version. Nobody's fault. The world is in kind of a weird place right now. Getting stuff shipped from across the Atlantic is weird, but one way or another, we will bring you that, but that's why it's been delayed.
Yes. So one more thing, too, looking forward to the future of 9th edition. We are going to do another Slow Grow Crusade series. The armies that are involved in that, I'm not sure what they're going to be yet.
Mine's Custodes.
But okay, yeah.
I'm going to call that right.
I'm not sure what I'm going to pick. But with that being said, another thing that we're going to do with this being a brand new edition, there's going to be players wanting to bring their friends into it. It's like anytime something new starts. Warhammer has been experiencing a renaissance since 8th edition started. It seems like every month, every release, there's more people interested, more people are seeing it. You have community projects like Astartes coming out that's being covered on like pseudo mainstream media outlets on the internet are covering Warhammer 40k related things, which pulls more people in.
Yes.
So with a new edition release, there's going to be more people wanting to get in. Some of you may have friends, family, whatever, who are wanting to get into the game who've never touched it before, or at least not in any real capacity. And one of the cool things with that is to actually sit down with them and try to help them figure out how they want to play. My wife, as an example of this, is a huge fan of Orcs, huge fan of Skaven. We don't play Age of Sigmar, but yeah. Huge fan of Skaven. And I have quite a sizable Orc army. I have about 6,000 points. She wants to learn how to play them. One of the things we are going to do once 9th edition comes out and we kind of get a grip on it is we're going to go over just a nice simple way of how you can help your friend come in, pick what they want to try, get them a 500 point list up, something to just get used to the game, and a good way to help them learn to play the game, because when you're teaching someone a new game, it can be really easy to fall into the I'm going to play the game for you. And, that's not where you want to be, because that's a good way to turn somebody off of it.
Yes.
So that's one of the things that I'm personally excited about. One, because I get to play a game that I love with a woman I love, so it's really great. So you can take that and kind of move forward with it. So that's going to be fun. She gets to actually put her Orcs on the table and really get something out of it.
And for context, she has played 8th edition, so
Yes.
she's not completely unfamiliar with the rules. This will be from the standpoint of teaching a new person, and we will be teaching her the 9th edition rules.
And as much as she has played 8th edition a couple times, but it's never been one of those things to where she's really like she tries to she gets the gist of it, but she hasn't really internalized the rules.
She's not a competitive player.
Yeah, and
as well.
I think that's also one of those things to like help present the rules in a way that it's easier to actually ingest them and keep them.
And I think that's that's almost kind of our fault for not helping her learn the rules to the level. And she's not interested in learning to the level we run at, because she has no interest in going tournaments. She plays Warhammer for fun, period, which is honestly the purest way to play the game, because at their heart, GW is about this game for fun more than competitive. But
yeah, so that'll be something fun. Just a little goofy thing that we can do one day. It'll be good.
And with that, we'll also talk about, when we're doing the Crusade stuff, we'll also talk about like how do you again, some of the same things that we did before, and like how do you look at what do you take when starting
and
a
actually
new
do a
army.
deep dive into that. Yeah,
We're really going to do that with my custodes. I've already been hitting decision paralysis on what to build, so I need points costs.
You
I
hit
need points costs.
decision paralysis on what you're going to have on a sandwich. Like, I'm sorry, you do. Love you, man.
Well, all the choices that you can have. I mean, it's hard to decide which sandwich I just don't judge me.
Feel free to judge him. If you wish to judge him, leave a comment down below telling me how you judge him.
Joking aside, we're gonna have a lot more stuff to do with, especially with the Crusade rules. That's going to make it easier to do a narrative game, make it easier to start an army, tell your narrative with it, grow the army as you do so. We're going to make it a point to really emphasize that.
Yeah.
And from the attitude of, or from the angle of either a new player coming into the game or starting a new army, because there is no better time to start a new army that you've always been wanting to play with than a new edition of the game.
Yeah. Because if nothing else, hopefully, and there's always going to be something unbalanced. It's a game. There will always be unbalanced. The idea is never to make a completely balanced game, because at that point
the game is solved.
At that point you're just rolling dice. If the game is completely balanced, then nothing you put on the board matters. It's just dice. So having that, you see what I'm saying? Like if there's no...
Why are we willing to spend so much time and money and effort playing Warhammer when chess is an equally skill-requiring strategy game? Chess is perfectly symmetrical. It's purely about logical decisions. There's no chance, there's no customization, there's no investment. It's all of those things together that make a hobby like this so satisfying.
But anyway, at the beginning of a new edition, hopefully it will be at as close to balanced as possible without going too far through it.
And if nothing else, nobody's going to know what's balanced for the first few months anyway. Maybe more than that, since a lot of places aren't going to be able to have any kind of large tournaments, except for online on Tabletop Simulator, which is not going to be able to judge the actual meta, because when you don't have to buy models, people can do trains things just for the giggles, which makes me happy.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a fun. This is genuinely a good time to be a fan of Warhammer as a whole.
Oh yeah.
This is good stuff. Interesting lore coming out, interesting rules coming out, and it seems
they're working on a TV show. For the love of the Emperor, we're gonna have an Inquisitor TV show
it's
about Eisenhorn. Look it up if you hadn't heard. I'm excited.
This is a good time to be in the hobby. So, Thank you very much for watching. Do you have any other closing remarks you'd like to hit on before we finish up?
The Indomitus box is not the new starter box for 9th edition. It is a limited run box. Now, they're making a ton of them. Some of the models that we've been... Well, I think some of the models that we've been trying to get, Sanguinary Guard for Jake, my Impulsor, have been back-ordered, and I really think that's because they shifted all their production over to the Indominus boxes to get plenty of them out there.
Yeah.
So... if you want it, you need to get it sooner rather than later, because they have said it's only going to be for the launch of 9th edition.
You've got a couple months, I think.
You don't have to get it right now, but you need to get it sooner rather than later if you want to get that. And it is a lot of models for the money. Mm-hmm. If you're interested in both armies, just buy it. It's worth the money by far.
And even if you're just interested in one half, if you can't find someone to split it with, still buy it, and then eBay is your friend.
Yeah, because you will easily be able to sell either half of it, because Marines, unbuilt Marines that just came out will always sell, period. Mm-hmm. And the hype for Necrons is the highest it has been since the Necrons came out. I was there for the launch of Necrons. I think the hype for them is actually higher now than it was when they first came out.
People are very excited.
So,
it's a good thing.
If you want that box, you need to get it sooner rather than later. It's a great value. If you think you'll use most of the components in one side or the other, or both, just find the money and go ahead and get it. Your 9th edition core rulebook is in there. So that plus one half of the models on the side means it's a great deal, even if it takes you a year to sell the other half.
Which it won't.
You'll
be able to. I do a lot of selling.
2 weeks to a month.
I do a lot of selling on eBay. Especially the first month or two, they're going to sell within a week.
But anyway, there will be a new starter box of some sort down the road. That is the 9th edition's. That is the 9th edition launch box.
I do expect it'll be Necrons and Marines again. But I think what it'll be is a slightly dumbed down version of what this box is.
I think it will be. I don't know if I'd use the word dumbed down. I think it will be actually...
I think it'll be something more akin to, like, model count-wise and, like, value-wise, something more akin to taking the Necron Start Collecting box and, like, the Space Marine, like, Shadow Spear Start Collecting box and just jamming them in a box together. Like, as far as, like, model quality and amount, I think it'll be closer to that.
Well, I also think that you'll have, say, here's 5 Assault Intercessors, 5 Bolt Gun Intercessors. You'll have more standard unit choices that will be like, you're going to need. Like, the Necron has... the point of this box is all the new models are in there. They're not going to do that with the starter set. Yeah. They're going to put some of the old staples, like standard Bolt Gun Intercessors, in the starter box, and some of the new stuff.
Give the Necrons some Immortals, or like some Wraiths, or
exactly those guys. Which Mortals and Wraiths, most Necron players will want to have.
They're really good.
They'll go in the starter box.
Yeah, but we have rambled long enough. This has actually been a very focused talk. I'm proud of our.
We didn't start rambling until right at the end.
Go us! Yeah, woo! So thank you all for watching. If indeed you have watched this far. If you like what you see, please leave a like down below. If you have any questions, concerns, what are you excited about for 9th edition? What are you terrified about? What do what's something on your mind about it? Please leave a comment down below. I respond to every single one of them. And like I said, please feel free to subscribe if you would like to see more and like to see the channel continue to grow. And a sincerest thank you for everyone who has subscribed. We are at over 80 subscribers currently, which It's weird because I know it's not a huge number, but it feels like a lot.
We're not. Neither of us went into this with the expectation of us growing this channel at this kind of rate.
I didn't expect any growth.
So the fact that we are hitting here with us having only a semi-regular release schedule,
which I am trying to get better on it. I was furloughed from work, which is what made it easy to get a video out a week. Mm-hmm. I started work back again, so it's getting back into the groove of everything. Yep. And I've also life has happened. Life is happening to everyone. So it's something just we're getting it going.
So, but just the fact that it's come this far this quickly, which was better than we hoped, we thank you all so much for your support, and we hope you're as excited for 9th edition as we are, and that we can share in that excitement. And if there's anything you want us to talk about or cover, throw ideas at us. We'll see what sticks. We'll see what inspires us. We're always happy to interact with you.
Yes.
And as always, This transmission
has been Omnisci approved. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching.